Hello and welcome. My name is Heather Halcyon, and I am a faculty scheduling administrator at UAGC. I will be the host of this session, The Intersection of Race, Belonging, and Learning, Enhancing the Experiences of Black Students in Higher Education. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Shené Owens, Director of Student Affairs at the University of Virginia. She provides oversight and management in the design, development, implementation, and monitoring of student services and programming to all students within the School of Education and Human Development. She has served over 15 years in the field of higher education within both private and public institutions, such as Hampton University, Sarah Lawrence College, and William and Mary. Dr. Owens holds both a BA in English Arts and MA in Counseling from Hampton University and a PhD in Educational Policy Planning and Leadership from William and Mary. Throughout her career, Dr. Owens has been named one of Inside Business's top 40 under 40 awardees, one of William and Mary's Women of Influence, William and Mary Diversity Champions. She received the Outstanding Faculty Award from William and Mary's Black Student Organization and an award in recognition of advocacy, dedication, commitment, and devotion to the APIA communities at William and Mary. Dr. Owens, I'll turn this session over to you.
Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you heard my introduction, and for my presentation today, again, my name is Shené Owens. For my presentation today, I will be speaking from both a researcher and a practitioner's lens. So I have 17 years of experience that's come from working at a HBCU, predominantly white institutions, private liberal arts, mid-sized state, as well as a large R1 institution. My research over the years have been focusing on African American women in higher education, first female presidents of colleges and universities, mentorship and leadership within the Greek letter organizations, as well as race, sense of belonging, and the experiences of Black students at predominantly white institutions. And that is why we are here today. So these are the learning outcomes that I propose that we will share together. It is my goal for us to get to these outcomes, but it's most important for us to engage in conversation and discussion. So I hope with understanding the impact of race and belonging, you'll gain a deeper understanding of how race intersects with the sense of belonging of Black students at predominantly white institutions. Through identifying challenges and barriers, we'll discuss the barriers that Black students encounter at predominantly white institutions and within predominantly white spaces. We'll explore strategies for support, as well as develop actionable plans that you can take back to your universities. Our agenda for today, I will share some of my research from my dissertation, as well as pose questions to you as participants through a poll. We'll break out into some groups so you can have some group discussions. Then we'll come back together for a group debrief and then wrap up with Q&A. So my research was rooted in Terrell Strayhorn's model of sense of belonging. And the definition of sense of belonging that guided my research is from Terrell Strayhorn, and I'm going to read it to you. Students perceive social support on campus is a feeling or sensation of connectedness and the experience of mattering or feeling cared about, accepted, respected, valued by, and important to the campus community or others on campus, such as faculty, staff, and peers. The research questions that guided this study was, how do the selected Black students at a predominantly white institution make meanings of their lived experiences and sense of belonging on campus? And the sub-questions for that were, how does race affect the experiences of selected Black students at a PWI? As well as what factors contributed to the sense of belonging of selected Black students at a PWI. So through my findings, there were 7 themes that emerge. In the first theme, students' perception of, and the pseudonym for the university was prestigious university. So students talked about how they perceived their university and how that impacted their sense of belonging. The sub-themes were feeling of othering, the academic rigor and stress and grind culture from being at this university, as well as being a first generation college student. The second theme was financial aid. All of the students noted the fact that they received some type of scholarship, which was part of the deciding factor for them choosing their institution. The third theme was the global pandemic, COVID-19. So this study took place in the fall of 2023, and 3 of the participants were graduating seniors at that point. So they entered into the university during what we would call the COVID year, which was 2020-2021 academic year. So the pandemic impacted the students differently depending on what year they entered into the institution, but it had an impact on all of them. Theme number 4 was community, and the sub-themes that came from that was find your people. Although these were individual interviews and I interviewed the students, they did not know who the other students were. They each used the quote, find your people, as a way of finding community. They also talked about safety, both physical safety as well as the safety to be around certain people and in certain spaces. The fifth theme was physical spaces on campus. And sub-themes that arose from that were the freshman residence hall. Many of the students had varying experiences of their freshman residence hall. And for some, there was harm that came from that experience. They also talked about a Black affinity house on campus and how they use that space to find community. They talked about a sorority house. There was one participant who talked about the fact that she lived in her sorority house and just being around not only other women, but Black women who shared common interests. They also talked about the importance of the diversity center on campus. Theme number 6 was being Black at a PWI. And I use the being Black in quotes because each participant had their own definition of what it meant to be Black. And some of it was imposed by others. So sub-themes that came from that was Black identity, as well as stereotypes and microaggressions. So from these findings, the implications that I had for policy and practice was to build affinity spaces that are specific for Black students. Another thing that I proposed was to provide special interest housing for first-year students, considering how much students, reference their first year in the residence hall in terms of othering, in terms of being the one of, so that was something that resonated. Another policy that I would propose is to provide cultural responsive mental health counseling for students. There's stigma in the Black community in terms of counseling and mental health. So having someone on campus that students feel they can relate to would be important. As I mentioned, the study was based on Strayhorn's theory, but we also think about Maslow, to which Strayhorn built his theory on in terms of basic needs. So although most of the students felt a sense of belonging as they discussed through this study, their sense of belonging was not brought about by the institution. It was provided by other people and places. So the university provided students with those basic needs in terms of food, shelter, and financial aid, but the participants found their sense of belonging within their clubs and organizations, as well as people and spaces. As I mentioned before, this study took place in the fall of 2023. So the students had different experiences based on their academic year. For the students who entered during the COVID years of 2020 and 2021, their experiences were impacted by the pandemic, but also social injustice that was happening in the world. So I want to allow for you all to participate in this presentation. As I mentioned, this is a discussion. So if you can either use the QR code or in order to join the Slido, I want you to answer this question. And I have 3 poll questions and it'll appear on the screen. So what do you believe is the most significant barrier Black students face in feeling a sense of belonging at predominantly white institutions? Okay, I'm going to read out some of these responses. So lack of Black faculty. Another person said, not feeling as though they can be themselves without judgment. Lack of representation in the curriculum. Sense of belonging and being understood or seen as competent. Lack of social capital. Lack of Black leadership, faculty, organizations. Attack on DEI programming. So yes, these are all barriers that Black students face, and it impacts their sense of belonging. Students are experiencing racial bias and microaggressions, feeling that they lack of feeling they can be themselves and be appreciated. Yes, there's also a pressure to conform to the dominant culture and norms. There's also the social and academic isolation, the present DEI policy with no action behind it. Yes. So a few people mentioned the lack of representation and visibility. When students don't see themselves reflected in their faculty, leadership, and peer groups, it contributes to that feeling of isolation that we've talked about. I think back to my previous institution, and the students called me, and this was affectionately calling me, Auntie Shené. And some people were like, oh, they're not respecting you. Like, no, I did not take it that way at all. Auntie Shanae was an honor because it meant that there was a familiarity, that they felt comfortable around me, that they felt that auntie feel, and I appreciated that. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next poll question. So the second question, in your experience, what has been the most impactful ways for your institution to support the academic success of Black students at predominantly white institutions? So we're drawing from your experience with this question. Don't just talk about it, be about it. I know that's right. Personal messages. Offering opportunities for social interaction. Advocacy that can be seen. I think that goes back to don't just talk about it, be about it. Access to more resources. Hiring Black faculty. Seeing a theme. Creating a safe space for all. Valuing Black faculty. So you can't just hire them. You also have to value them while they are there so that they will want to stay. But what I will add to that in terms of from my experience would be also mentorship. We talked about representation, but adding that mentorship to it also, creating culturally responsive academic support programs, inclusive curriculum. So we talked about that to include classroom practices also, not just the curriculum, building support systems, listening, encouraging engagement and sharing of experiences. Okay, so we have one final poll question. And this one you can choose what you feel versus very effective, somewhat effective, neutral, somewhat ineffective, and very ineffective. And the question is, how effective do you think your institution's current efforts are in promoting inclusivity and belonging for Black students? Okay, so we have a toss up between somewhat effective and somewhat ineffective. So just some advice that I would give in terms of institutions that are not being effective in the work that they're doing to provide a inclusive environment for Black students. I would recommend gathering data and feedback so that the institution is aware. And sometimes certain demographics will be ignored or assume that what is happening is enough. So gathering that data allows for something tangible to fully understand the needs of the students. Engage in conversations with leadership and bring students to the table. Oftentimes, they need to hear from students to fully understand their experiences. Advocate for representation and resources. So we talked about the importance of representation. So we have to continue to advocate for that. But as someone mentioned before, it's not just bringing faculty to the table, but supporting them while they're there. And support comes through resources as well. And continuing dialogue, conversations that we're having today, and holding people accountable. So now we are going to shift to breakout room discussions. And these are questions, or 3 questions to help guide you in your discussion. You'll be broken up into breakout rooms so that you can have smaller discussions. But I want you to take about 10 minutes to discuss these 3 questions. And it is okay if you end up on 1 or 2 questions and don't get to all 3. But I want you to think about this, and then we'll come back together and discuss what you all talked about in your breakout sessions. And once you get into your breakout rooms, I'll send the questions in the chat so you have them there as well.
Okay, I was gonna say the room's been created. You guys should have a button to join the breakout room. If you don't see it, it could be hidden under one of your open windows. So check behind the windows. Hi, Amy. Amy, are you there? G, I just sent you a link to join the breakout room. Do you see the button on your screen? You know what? I did a bad job of tracking the time. How much more time do we want to give them?
I'm tracking right now. We're gonna give him like 5 more minutes.
Okay, all right. Just let me know. I'll give them a 1 minute warning. I'm sorry for that.
No problem.
You know what happened? The Teams, somebody hit me in Teams and I did my thing I do. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. I actually set a timer for my phone.
Perfect.
Hello, if you've just joined us, we are currently in breakout rooms. We have breakout questions that everyone is discussing in groups. So I'll go ahead and repaste those in the chat again, just so you can see them. We just have a few more minutes in there.
Anja, can you send the 1 minute warning?
Yep, it's done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it'll automatically close. It's counting down now, 57 seconds.
Everyone's back in.
Okay. So I want to take some time for us to just talk through some of the things that you all discussed in your breakout room. So if anyone wants to share, there were 2 different breakout rooms. Would love to hear what you all discussed. If there were some key themes or insights that emerged in your group about the challenges Black students face in feeling a sense of belonging, or effective ways to create stronger sense of belonging.
So I don't mind sharing. But side note, my middle name is Shené. So woo woo, go Shené's. Um,
Okay.
um, yes. So in our group, we discussed basically kind of we got to the first and the second question. But the first question, one thing that we said that really like I would like to see is adding that I guess adding to the curriculum, like since we know that most students have to take electives, it would be cool to see, maybe African American studies as an elective or something, in relation to Black culture or, just making the students feel a sense of belonging with offering that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Would anyone else like to share?
Sure, I'll share another one. Um, we talked about diverse faculty, which you had discussed in your session, and the importance of diversity in the faculty. And then sometimes in the online space, you don't see the faculty much. And so we also talked about diversity in like if we're providing videos to students, explaining materials, demonstrating diversity of faculty within those videos and in the materials that we're providing.
Thank you.
Something that I had shared was, our own individual responsibilities to continue to read about and listen to other Black educators and researchers we have a couple of faculty specifically in our institution who do research in this area. And being willing to try new things within the classroom to see not only if they create obviously more inclusive environments for our Black students, but for all students. It can have that sort of far-reaching effect as well. And then we had a conversation just about code switching and how, as you had brought up the part about being referred to as auntie and how that may come off to someone who does not understand that culturally as using inappropriate language or not using professional language.
Mhm.
And so being sensitive to the fact that when an individual code switches, that takes energy and effort and mental cognitive load. And so depending on what's going on in their daily life, they may not always have the energy to code switch. And so that we have to be sensitive that just because that it takes effort to show up as assimilated. And people should not have to do that. Many people do. But that we need to be understanding of what that means and how we can have enough cultural competence to be understanding if someone approaches us differently than maybe they had through the first half of the class, depending on what's happening.
Thank you for that. So even to your point, Kate, what role do we see faculty, staff, and campus leaders playing in implementing these strategies? We're on the front line with the students, but how do we enforce these things that we are trying to implement?
So we talked a little bit about that too, about you know, kind of giggled about it being apropos considering the significance of today, but that it's not enough to simply advocate on the one-to-one level. That's important. That's part of our role as staff and faculty, but that we also have to be advocating at a larger scale for, Rain had suggested, funding, spaces, safe spaces, affinity groups, etc. And even to the point of just bringing it up, because there are individuals in positions of power they do not need an affinity group. They do not need a safe space. It does not occur to them that something like that would be needed. And so continuing to push through, money does the talk, money makes the thing go forward. Otherwise it's just talking if we're not actually putting actual dollar amounts towards those things. So pushing for there to be budget, but also pushing for faculty council or your faculty senate, opportunities for, individual just shared about curricular changes or curricular implementations, but pushing in the powers within your structure that can make those changes.
Thank you. So I want to be mindful of time. So I just want to end with some things it's you all talked about in the recap of your discussions, that it's not just about creating supportive programs and policies. We have to be mindful of the institution where we are. And as Kate mentioned, the country that we're in terms of today's election day. So it's about transforming institutional cultures to ensure that all students feel valued and seen and empowered to reach their full potentials in the classroom. It's about continued commitment. It's about collective responsibility as well as actionable change. So that being said, I want to leave you kind of with the final thoughts that I had within my literally the last line of my dissertation were: all Black students are not the same. All Black students who attend a PWI are not the same. All Black students who attend the same PWI do not have the same college experience or viewpoint. All Black students who attend a PWI deserve the safety and freedom to be themselves in any space on their campus. All Black students who attend a PWI deserve an environment that affirms and supports their identity and fosters a sense of belonging. So I wanted to leave you with those words as we're wrapping up this discussion. I appreciate you all for being here, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Owens, and thank you to the audience for your participation in today's session. Please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on your conference experience. Thank you very much.